Welcome to Home with the Helmers, brought to you by Keeler and Peterson's Inspirational Suites. Keeler and Peterson, Inspirational Suites since 1879. Go ahead, nibble a macaroon or two. And now, the final episode of Home with the Helmers, brought to you by Keeler and Peterson.
Good night. Night. I hope you'll get safely home. I should be glad to, but really, you haven't far to go. Good night. Good night. At last, we've got rid of her. She's an awful bore.
Aren't you very tired, Torvald?
No, not in the least.
Nor sleepy?
Not a bit. I feel particularly lively. But you do look tired and sleepy.
Yes, very tired. I shall soon sleep now.
There, you see? I was right after all, not to let you stop longer.
Everything you do is right.
Now my lark is speaking like a reasonable being. Did you notice how jolly Rank was this evening?
Was he? I had no chance of speaking with him.
Nor I much, but I haven't seen him in such good spirits for a long time. It is splendid to be back in our own home, to be quite alone together. Oh, you enchanting creature.
Look at me that way, Torvald.
I'm not to look at my dearest treasure, at the loveliness that is mine only, wholly and entirely mine.
Say these things to me this evening.
I see you have the tarantella still in your blood. That makes you all the more enticing. Listen. The other people are going now. Oh, Nora, soon the whole house will be still.
I hope so.
Yes, don't you, Nora, darling? When we're among strangers, do you know why I speak so little to you? And keep so far away and only steal a glance at you now and then? Do you know why I do it? Because I am fancying that we love each other in secret, that I am secretly betrothed to you, and that no one guesses there is anything between us.
Yes, yes, yes. I know. All of your thoughts are with me.
And then when we have to go, and I put the shawl about your smooth, soft shoulders and that glorious neck of yours, I imagine that you're my bride, that our wedding is just over, and that I am bringing you for the first time to my home, that I am alone with you for the first time, quite alone with you in your trembling loveliness. Oh, this evening I was longing for you, and you only, and when I watched you swaying and whirling in the tarantella, my blood boiled. I could endure it no longer, and that's why I made you come home with me so early.
No, Torvald, I won't have all this.
What do you mean? Oh, I see. You're teasing me. You won't. You won't. Am I not your husband? Who's there?
It is I. May I come in a moment?
What can he want? Wait a moment. Come. It is nice of you to give us a look in.
Well, I thought I heard your voice, and that put it into my head. Ah, this dear old place. How cozy you two are here.
You seem to find it pleasant enough upstairs, too.
Oh, exceedingly. And why not? Why shouldn't one get all one can out of this world? All one can, for as long as one can. The wine was splendid.
Especially the champagne.
Did you notice it? It's incredible the quantity that I contrived to get down.
Orville drank plenty of champagne too.
Did he?
It always puts him in such spirits.
Ah, well, why shouldn't one have a jolly evening after a well-spent day?
Well spent. Well, I haven't much to boast of.
But I have, don't you see?
I suppose you've been involved in a scientific investigation, Dr. Rank?
Quite right.
Bless me. Little Nora talking about scientific investigations.
Am I to congratulate you on the result?
By all means.
It was good then.
Oh, the best possible. Both for doctor and patient, certainty.
Certainty.
Oh, absolute certainty. Wasn't I right to enjoy myself after it?
Yes, quite right, Dr. Rank.
And so say I, provided you don't have to pay for it tomorrow.
Ah, well, in this life, nothing's to be had for nothing.
Dr. Rank, aren't you quite fond of masquerades?
Yes, when there are plenty of comical disguises.
Tell me, what shall we two be at our next masquerade?
Little insatiable. Thinking of your next already.
We too. Ah, I'll tell you. You must go as a good fairy.
But what costume would indicate that?
Ah, she has simply to wear her everyday dress.
Capital. But don't you know what you yourself will be?
Oh, yes, my dear friend, I'm perfectly clear on that point.
Well,
Well, at the next masquerade, I shall be invisible.
what a comical idea.
There's a big black hat. Haven't you heard of the invisible hat? It comes down all around you and then no one can see you.
No, you're right there.
Oh, I'm quite forgetting what I came for. Helmer, give me a cigar. One of those dark Havanas.
With the greatest of pleasure.
Ah. Hmm. Thanks.
Let me give you a light.
A thousand thanks. And now, goodbye.
Goodbye. Goodbye, my dear fellow.
Sleep well, Dr. Rank.
Thanks for the wish.
Wish me the same.
You? Very well. Since you asked me, sleep well. And thanks for the light.
Goodbye. He's been drinking a good deal.
I dare say. Torvald, what are you doing there?
Oh, I must empty the letterbox. It's quite full. There'll be no room for the newspapers tomorrow morning.
You're going to work tonight?
Not very likely. Like, what's this? Someone's been at the lock.
Lock?
I'm sure of it. What does it mean? I can't think that one of the servants would. It's a broken hairpin. Nora, it's one of yours.
Well, it must have been one of the children's.
You must break them of such tricks. Huh. Yeah. At last, I've got it open. Ellen? Ellen, please put the hall door lamp out. Just see how they've accumulated. What's this?
A letter, no, Torvald, no.
It's 2 visiting cards from Rank.
Dr. Rank?
Dr. Rank, they were on top. He must have just put them in.
Is there anything on them?
There's a black cross over the name. Look at it. What a horrid idea. Looks just as if he were announcing his own death.
So he is.
What? Do you know anything? Has he said anything?
Yes. These cards mean that he's taken his last leave of us. He means to shut himself up and die.
Oh, poor fellow. Of course, I knew we couldn't hope to keep him long. But so soon? And then to go and creep into his lair like a wounded animal?
Must be, and the fewer words the better. Don't you think so, Torvald?
It's so grown into our lives. I can't realize that he's gone. He and his sufferings and his loneliness formed a sort of cloudy background to the sunshine of our happiness. Well, perhaps it is best so, at any rate for him. And perhaps for us too, Nora. Now we two are thrown entirely upon each other. Oh, my darling wife. I feel as if I could never hold you close enough. Do you know, Nora? Often I wish that some danger might threaten you, that I might risk body and soul and everything for your sake.
Now you shall go and read your letters, Torvald.
No. No, no, not tonight. I want to be with you, sweet wife.
With the thought of your dying friend.
You're right. This has shaken us both. Unloveliness has come between us. Thoughts of death and decay. We must seek to cast them off. Till then, we will remain apart.
Torvald. Good night.
Good night, my little bird. Sleep well, Nora. Now I will go and read my letters.
Never to see him again. Never, never, never. Never to see the children again. Never, never. Oh. That black, icy water. Oh. That bottomless. Oh, if it were just over. Now he has it. Now he's reading it. No, 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 Torvald. Goodbye. Goodbye, my little ones.
Nora? Nora? What is this? Do you know what is in this letter?
We will return to the continuing story of Home with the Helmers after this brief message from our sponsor. Home with the Helmers is sponsored by Keeler and Peterson. Keeler and Peterson. Inspirational sweets since 1879. And now, inside each canister of Keeler and Peterson's macaroons, whether they're sugar-free, fat-free, or original, you'll receive a beautiful figurine of Nora Helmer or Dr. Rank. Who's at the door? It's Dr. Rank. Keeler and Peterson. Inspirational sweets since 1879. Go ahead, nibble a macaroon or two. Keeler and Peterson, sponsoring Home with the Helmers. And now we return to the continuing story of Home with the Helmers.
Never to see him again. Never, never, never. Never to see the children again. Never, never. Oh, that black, icy water. Oh, that bottomless. If it were just over. has it. Now he's reading it. Oh, no, Torvald. Goodbye. Goodbye, my little ones.
Nora? Nora? What is this? Do you know what's in this letter?
Yes, I know. Let me go.
Where do you want to go?
You shan't save me, Torvald.
Is it true what he writes? No. No. It cannot be true.
It's true, I have loved you beyond all else in the world.
Misha, no silly evasions.
Torvald!
Oh, you wretched woman. What have you done?
Oh, you shall not save me. You shall not take my guilt upon yourself.
I don't want any melodramatic airs. Here you shall stay and give an account of yourself. Do you understand what you have done? Answer me. Do you understand it?
Yes. Now I begin to fully understand it.
Oh. What an awful awakening. During all these 8 years, she who was my pride and joy, a hypocrite, a liar, worse, a criminal. The hideousness of it. I ought to have foreseen something of the kind. All your father's dishonesty. Be silent. I say, your father's dishonesty you have inherited. No religion, no morality, no sense of duty. How I am punished for shielding him. I did it for your sake, and you reward me like this.
It's like this.
You have destroyed my whole happiness. You've ruined my future. Oh, it's frightful to think of. I am in the power of that scoundrel. He can do whatever he pleases with me, demand whatever he chooses, and I must submit. And all this disaster is brought upon me by an unprincipled woman.
When I am gone, you will be free.
No fine phrases. Oh, your father, too, was always ready with them. What good would it do me if you were gone, as you say? No good in the world. He can publish the story all the same. I might even be suspected of collusion. People will think I was at the bottom of it all and I egged you on. And for all this, I have you to thank. You, whom I have done nothing but pet and spoil during our whole married life. Do you understand now what you have done to me?
Yes.
It's incredible. I can't grasp it. But we must come to an understanding. Put that shawl down. Take it off. I must try to pacify him one way or other. The secret must be kept, cost what it may. As for ourselves, we must live as we have always done, but of course only in the eyes of the world. Of course you will continue to live here, but the children cannot be left in your care. I dare not trust them to you. I have to say this to one that I have loved so tenderly, whom I still... But that must be a thing of the past. Henceforward, there can be no question of happiness, but merely of saving the ruins, the shreds, the show of it. What's that? So late. Can it be the worst? Can he... Hide yourself, Nora. Say you're ill.
There's a letter for you, ma'am.
Give it to me. Yes, from him. You shall not have it. I shall read it.
Read it.
I have hardly the courage to. We may be lost, both you and I. Ah, I must know. Nora! Nora! Oh, I must read it again. Yes. Yes. It is so. I am saved. Nora! I am saved.
And I?
You too. Yeah, of course. We are both saved. Both of us. Look here. He sends you back your promissory note. He writes that he regrets and apologizes that that's a happy turn in his life. No matter what he writes, we are saved, Nora. No one can harm you. Oh, Nora. Nora. I'll just see. Oh. No, I won't look at it. The whole thing shall be nothing but a dream to me. There. It's gone. He wrote that ever since Christmas Eve. Oh, Nora. It must have been 3 awful days for you.
I have fought a hard fight these last 3 days.
And in your agony, you saw no other outlet but... No, we won't think of that horror. We will only rejoice and repeat, it's over. All over. Don't you hear, Nora? You don't seem to be able to grasp it. Yes, it's over. What is this set look on your face? Oh, my poor Nora. I understand. You can't believe that I have forgiven you. But I have, Nora, I swear it. I have forgiven everything. I know that what you did was all for love of me.
That's true.
You loved me as a wife should love her husband. It was only the means that you misjudged. But do you think that I love you the less for your helplessness? No. No, 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 no. Only lean on me. I will counsel and guide you. I should be no true man if this very womanly helplessness did not make you doubly dear in my eyes. You mustn't think of the hard things I said in my first moment of terror, when the world seemed to be tumbling about my ears. I have forgiven you, Nora. I swear, I have forgiven you.
I thank you for your forgiveness.
No, stay. Oh, what are you going to do?
To take off my doll's dress.
Yes. Yes, do, dear. Try to calm down and recover your balance, my scared little songbird. You may rest secure. I have broad wings to shield you. Oh, how lovely and cozy our home is, Nora. Here you're safe. Here I can shelter you like a hunted dove whom I have saved from the claws of the hawk. I shall soon bring your poor beating heart to rest. Believe me, Nora, very soon. Tomorrow all this will seem quite different. Everything will be as before. I shall not need to tell you again that I forgive you. You will feel it for yourself that it is true. How could I find it in my heart to drive you away, or even so much as reproach you? You don't know a true man's heart, Nora. There is something indescribably sweet and soothing to a man in having forgiven his wife, honestly forgiven from the bottom of his heart. She becomes his property in a double sense. She is as though born again. She has become, so to speak, at once his wife and his child. And that is what you shall be to me henceforth, my bewildered, helpless darling. Don't worry about anything, Nora. Only open your heart to me, and I will be both will and conscience to you. Wait, what's this? You've not gone to bed. You have changed your dress.
Yes, Torvald. Now I've changed my dress.
But why now, so late?
Shall not sleep tonight.
But, Nora, dear.
It's not so late yet. Sit down, Torvald. You and I have much to say to each other.
We will return to the continuing story of Home with the Helmers after this message from our sponsor, Keeler and Peterson. Keeler and Peterson, inspired sweets since 1879. Keeler and Peterson, go ahead. Nibble a macaroon or two. And now, for a limited time, if you order 3 canisters or more of Keeler and Peterson's macaroons, you will receive a beautiful hardback edition of Henrik Ibsen's A Dollhouse. Sure is a page turner. Keeler and Peterson. Inspired sweets since 1879. Go ahead, nibble a macaroon or two. And now we return to the continuing story of Home with the Helmers, sponsored by Keeler and Peterson. Inspired sweets since 1879. Go ahead. Nibble a macaroon or two.
I shall not sleep tonight.
But, Nora, dear.
So yet. Sit down, Torvald. You and I have much to say to each other.
Nora? What does this mean? Your cold, set face.
Down. It will take some time. I have much to talk over with you.
You alarm me. I don't understand you.
That's just it. You don't understand me. And I have never understood you until tonight. Don't interrupt. Just listen to what I have to say. We must come to a final settlement, Torvald. Does not one thing strike you as we sit here?
What should strike me?
We've been married 8 years. But this is the first time we two, you and I, man and wife, have ever talked together seriously.
Seriously. Well, what do you call seriously?
Ever since the first day we met, during 8 whole years, we've never exchanged one serious word about serious things.
Was I always to trouble you with the cares you could not help me to bear?
Nothing about cares. I mean, we've never set ourselves seriously to get to the bottom of anything.
Why, my dear Nora, what have you to do with serious things?
There we have it. You have never understood me. And I have had a great injustice done to me, Torvald. First by father and then by you.
What? By your father and me. By us who have loved you more than all the world.
You've never loved me. You only thought it amusing to be in love with me.
Why, Nora, what a thing to say.
Yes, so, Torvald, when I was home with father, he used to tell me all of his opinions. And I held the same opinions. If I had other ones, I concealed them because he wouldn't have liked it. He used to call me his doll child and play with me as I played with my dolls. And then I came to live in your house.
What an expression to use about our marriage.
Passed from his hands into yours. You settled everything according to your tastes, and I got your same tastes. Or I pretended to, I don't know which, maybe both perhaps. I seem to have been living here like a beggar, from hand to mouth, by performing tricks for you, Torvald, but you would have it so. You and father have done me a great wrong. It is your fault that my life has been wasted.
Why, Nora, how unreasonable and ungrateful you are. Haven't you been happy here?
No, never. I thought I was, but I never was.
Not happy.
No. Only merry. And you've always been so kind to me. But our house has been nothing but a playroom. I was your doll wife, just as I used to be Papa's doll child. And the children in their turn were my dolls. I thought it fun when you played with me, just as when I played with them. That has been our marriage, Torvald.
There is some truth in what you say, exaggerated and overstrained though it be. But henceforth, it shall be different. Playtime is over. Now comes the time for education.
Whose education? Mine or the children's?
Both, my dear Nora.
Torvald, you can't teach me to be a fit wife for you.
And you say that?
And am I fit to educate the children?
Nora,
Did you just say a minute ago that you didn't trust me to be with them?
in the excitement of the moment, why should you dwell on that?
No, you're perfectly right. That problem is beyond me. There's another one to be solved first. I must try to educate myself. You're not the man to do that. I must set about it alone. And that is why I'm now leaving you.
What? Do you mean to say?
I must stand quite alone to know myself and my surroundings, so I cannot stay with you.
Nora! Nora!
Going at once. Christine will take me in for tonight.
You are mad. I shall not allow it. I forbid it.
No use forbidding me anything now. I shall take with me what belongs to me. From you, I will accept nothing either now or afterwards.
What? Madness.
Tomorrow, I shall go home.
Home.
To what was my home. It will be easier for me to find some opening there.
Oh, in your blind experience.
Try to gain experience, Torvald.
You forsake your home, your husband, and your children. You don't consider what the world will say.
I can pay no heed to that. I only know that I must do it.
It's exasperating. Can you forsake your holiest duties in this way?
What do you call my holiest duties?
Do you ask me that? Your duties to your husband and your children.
I have other duties equally sacred.
Impossible. What duties do you mean?
My duties toward myself.
Before all else, you are a wife and a mother.
I no longer believe that. I think that before all else, I am a human being, just as much as you are. Or at least, I will try to be. I know that other people agree with you, and it says so in books. But henceforth, I cannot be satisfied with what most people say and what is in books. I must think things out for myself and try to get clear about them.
Are you not clear about your place in your own home? Have you not an infallible guide in questions like these? Have you not religion?
I don't know properly what religion it is.
What do you mean?
I know nothing but what our clergyman told me when I was confirmed. He explained that religion was this and that. When I get away from here and stand alone, I'll look into that matter too. I will see whether what he taught me is true, or at any rate, whether it's true for me.
This is unheard of. But if religion cannot keep you right, let me appeal to your conscience, for I suppose you have some moral feeling. Or answer me. Perhaps you have none.
Well, Torvald, it's not easy to say. I really don't know. I am all at sea about these things. I only know that I think quite differently from you about them. I hear, too, that the laws are different than what I thought. It appears that a woman can't save her dying father or try to save her husband's life. I don't believe that.
You talk like a child. You don't understand the society in which you live.
No, I don't. But I shall try to. I must make up my mind which is right, society or I.
Nora, you're ill. You're feverish. I almost think that you're out of your senses.
I've never felt so much clearness and certainty as I do tonight.
You are clear and certain enough to forsake husband and children.
Yes. I am.
Then there is only one explanation possible.
What is that?
You no longer love me.
Yes. That's just it.
Nora, can you say so?
Oh, I'm sorry, Torvald. For you've always been so kind to me. But I do not love you any longer.
Are you clear and certain on this point too?
Yes. Quite. That is why I won't stay here any longer.
Can you also make clear to me how I have forfeited your love?
Yes, I can. It was tonight, when the miracle didn't happen. For then I saw that you were not the man that I thought you were.
Explain yourself more clearly. I don't understand.
I have waited so patiently all these 8 years. For of course I know that miracles don't happen every day. When this crushing blow threatened me, I said to myself confidently, now comes the miracle. When Krogstad's letter lay in the box, it never occurred to me that you would submit to that man's conditions. I was convinced that you would say to him, make it known to all the world. And then you...
Well, what? When I had given my own wife's name up to disgrace and shame.
And I firmly believed that you would come forward, take everything upon yourself and say, I am the guilty one.
Nora.
You mean I never would have accepted such a sacrifice? No, certainly not. But what would my assertions have been worth in opposition to yours? That was the miracle I hoped for and dreaded. And it was to hinder that that I wanted to die.
I would gladly work for you, day and night, Nora. Bear sorrow and want for your sake. But no man sacrifices his honor, not even for one he loves.
Millions of women have done so.
Oh, you think and talk like a silly child.
Very likely. But you neither think nor talk like the man that I could spend my life with. When your terror was over, not for me, but for yourself, when there was nothing more to fear, then it was as though nothing had happened. I was your lark, your doll, whom you could take twice as much care of in the future because she was so weak and fragile. Torvald, in that moment, it burst upon me that I had been living here in this house with a strange man for 8 years, and I've borne him 3 children. I can't bear to think about it. I can tear myself to pieces.
I see it. I see it. An abyss has opened between us. But Nora, can it never be filled up?
As I am now, I am no wife for you.
I have the strength to become another man.
Perhaps when your doll is taken away from you.
To part from you. No. Nora, no. I can't grasp it.
The more reason for the thing to happen.
Nora! Nora, not now. Oh, wait till tomorrow.
I can't spend the night in a strange man's house.
But can't we live as brother and sister?
Oh, very well, that wouldn't last long. Goodbye, Torvald. No, I won't go into the children. As I am now, I have nothing to them. I know they're in better hands than mine.
Sometime, Nora. Sometime, Nora. How can I tell? I have no idea what will become of me, but you are my wife now and always.
Torvald, when a wife leaves her husband's house as I am doing, I have heard that in the eyes of the law he is free from all duties towards her. At any rate, I release you from all duties. You must not feel yourself bound any more than I shall. There must be perfect freedom on both sides. There. There's your ring back. Give me mine.
That too?
That too.
Here it is.
Very well. Now it's all over. Here are the keys. The servants know everything in the house better than I do. Tomorrow, when I've started, Christine will come back and pack up my things. I'll have them sent after me.
All over. All over. Nora, will you never think of me again?
Oh, I shall often think of you. And this house. And the children.
May I write to you, Nora?
No, never. You must not.
But I must send you.
Nothing.
I must help you if you need it.
No, I say I take nothing from strangers.
Nora, can I never be more than a stranger to you?
Total. Then the miracle of miracles would have to happen.
What is the miracle of miracles?
Both of us would have to change so that Total, I no longer believe in miracles.
But I will believe. We must so change that
That communion between us shall be a marriage. Goodbye, Torvald.
Nora! Nora! Empty. She's gone. Oh. The miracle of miracles. Yay!
Yes, thank you so much. We're going to bring the cast on stage now in my slow Zoom style here, adding all of our wonderful performers that have been with us for longer and shorter here. Here we go. Ah, where is Dr. Rank? Dr. Rank, give me your spotlight capability. Thank you. Thank you. Oh my goodness. And Ellen, open your. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Ellen, Kristen Morano, and Dr. Rank, Trish Deary, and Eric as Torvald Helmer, and Margie Sharp Douglas as Nora Helmer.
Yay!
Thank you all so much for being here, helping us complete this incredible experience of working on this play in this way, delving into the text as we have this serious delight that we have engaged in. This company of actresses is just extraordinary. And so dedicated, and took time out to meet with me on Zoom and with each other and experience this. And I'm so glad you could join us tonight. I want to now invite everyone to go to gallery view in the upper right hand corner, and to open your videos if you so desire and show us yourselves. This is so exciting. It's an opportunity for us to ask a couple of questions about this. Some of you, know the play very well, maybe don't know the play as well have been along with us for the other episodes, have not. But we've taken this very seriously and really like loved the experience. So I want to invite you to, in a Liz Lerman-esque way, start off by just saying very simply, and I include the cast in this too, and maybe you can help instruct the Liz Lerman critique or esque critique in this way. Just point to things either in the text or in the performance tonight that struck you, that stayed with you, that interest you, and then we'll go into a less expressionistic talk back. But I'm very interested to hear what hangs in your mind from the images and words that we've been experiencing for the last hour. So if that's clear enough, let's open the gates to that. Maybe someone from the cast can start us off. Unmute yourself. Anything that felt or captured your imagination? I have to say, I will start it then. I will have to say that today we had not planned this, but I loved the relationship between this character that I play and Ellen. Now that's a very meta way to start it, but the fact that they were connected to the idea that this was a page turner. And I found myself interested in those two ladies. Stop. I also like the fire that worked.
I will say, I was struck by how, you think like, oh, it's on Zoom, so you're devoid of that audience energy. But I was really struck by how aware I was that we had an audience, and it felt like the frisson felt like live theater. So thanks for being here this evening. We record it, and people can see it again, but it really did feel very different this evening, knowing that there were people sitting in their living rooms watching it.
I love the point near the end when Nora completely changed personalities.
Yeah, quite a complete change.
She had the furry, beautiful thing on and her shoulders bare, and then she put the white coat on and her purse, and she was all business. Knew who she was, that she had to get out of there. That struck me, that change.
Thank
Can you hear me?
Mhm.
I can imagine what a shocker this must have been in its time, because it's still shocking now. And then to have this woman person speak out against all the mores of the time, not to mention the mores of this husband who was supposed to be the be all and end all of her life.
Yeah. And that day and time would not have been acceptable at all.
Hold on a second. Barbara Radin is calling me.
That means something to some people.
Rachel, can you see the chat?
Oh my goodness, no. Shall I bring up the chat? I will.
Yeah, somebody posted in there, someone who said she can't.
Yes, not in a place I can unmute, but the last scene tore at my heart. There we have it. That it did me too. Absolutely. Thank you. Tore at my heart.
Knowing that not a word was changed of the play, and that announcement is such a part of the whole experience. And also just the beautiful job, the acting, the directing, and the time taken, and that it is, like Rebecca was saying, it feels like you're like a live. It is a live performance, but it feels just as engaging as sitting in a theater. And not always sitting in a theater do you feel that engagement, actually, sometimes. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's the quality of it.
Oh my
Um,
goodness. Yes, I absolutely hear you. Thank you, Kim. Yeah, I'm glad that came through. There's something about being able to exploit I mean, we're in gallery now, but like the close up and the medium shot and the long shot in Zoom, and also this strange hollowness that Zoom has that is such a quote unquote negative aspect of it. And those of you who understand the connection perhaps that I've made to the early 70s soap operas, that there is a lot of space and time in the early 70s soap operas where there just is kind of a vacuum that's being filled by this emotional state that the actors are in. So that is some of the reason why I was inspired by the 70s.
Well, kind of like life, isn't it? I mean, it's like, I mean, like life is like that. There's vacuums in the, right? I mean, so, and this, the medium is so face to face that that's where the real relation is happening anyway. So it's really a rich field, you know, to play in.
Thank you. I think so.
Yeah.
I thought
Sorry, go on.
Yes.
yeah, I thought the acting was incredible, and how the characters could go from despair to strength and back again, and to hold the tension of both. That was very well done. It was beautiful.
Scary.
Did you say
Yeah.
scary?
Scary. I mean, the revealed intimacy and the characters discovering the revelations of their experience. You know, it was like scary. I mean, they always call it revolutionary theater, 1879. But you know, yeah, this is like, whoa. I'm not sure we're ready for this.
I don't think we're still ready for it. I agree with you, Ralph.
Really?
Why is it that we're not still ready for it?
Well, we better get ready quick. It's 150 years. But that's what they meant when they said this is like, you know, people were freaking out. You know, this is like, whoa, this is.
They were freaking out. I mean, Ralph could probably talk about this too, but they hated the ending so much. There were a lot of alternate endings that are very entertaining to read. And there's a very famous German actress who wanted a different ending. You know, there's all of that wonderful dramaturgical stuff. I want, Eli, did you have something to say?
Oh, I just wanted to say on a side note that I really appreciated the deep silliness of drunk Dr. Rank. That he's really having a legitimate good time with that invisible hat and so on. And the guy who's literally dying is the only one who's able to have sort of a moment of lightness out of all of these people. I think it's really nicely introduced
Thank
with
you.
that.
I will ring the Rank bell for that. I'm such a Rank fan on that point, and I feel like Ibsen himself saw himself as Dr. Rank, if you will, and that there's that levity there. So thank you for pointing that out, and I thank you, Trish Deary, for exhibiting that in him, the fun, and yeah, when you're hit, he's up against the wall, and it kind of puts everything in perspective. Thank you.
Kind of an anecdote, but it's based on what you just said, Rachel, about people wanting different endings. They didn't like the one. Friends and I had gone to see A Doll's House on Broadway, probably back in the 90s. And we always liked to listen to the comments made in the audience or by audience members as we were leaving. And we were behind two ladies, and one of them turned to the other and said, well, you know, in the original, she didn't leave. So
That's wonderful. In the original, what is that?
original, he didn't leave.
In
Yeah.
the original. Fantastic. Well, some of you may understand that this Keeler and Peterson quote is about Laura Keeler, who was a friend of Ibsen's, a young friend, a fan of Ibsen's, who read Brand, his first really revolutionary play that cannot be staged, that really was a sensation and a breakthrough for him. And she wrote something, what we would call fan fiction now, called Brand's Daughters. And she knocked on his door and got to know Ibsen and his wife, and they loved her. They didn't have a daughter, they just had a son. They adopted her. And Laura Keeler has a situation in her life that allowed Ibsen to open up to the Nora beginnings, because she had a husband that she borrowed money for, forged a signature, and did indeed do what Nora does at the beginning of this play, and was discovered, spent 1 month in an asylum.
Oh my God.
Was estranged from her husband, who would not let her see their children. But she reconciled with her husband, which is something you won't read on Broadway.com that advertised the dollhouse that was just on Broadway. They wanted to sensationalize this, which I think is very interesting. But Laura Keeler did reconcile. She continued to be a writer. She wrote a lot. Some of it was about her relationship with Ibsen, but she never liked being Nora and associated with Nora. Which is such an interesting layer to this, especially with an all-female company. Now that's like, oh, I've just pulled it out far away from perhaps the experience that we've had tonight. But I do at this point want to ask you, for those of you who've seen A Dollhouse or read it, did you hear it differently or watch it differently on Zoom? And did anything surprise you about it in this iteration? If you have
What
that.
resonated with me that I don't remember feeling this in any other, other production, or the fact when I read it, was the courage at that period of time. I know this was, it was a play, but at that period of time, the courage it took for Nora to walk out on her position as a wife and as a mother, the courage to leave. And I was just thinking about, in today's society, I doubt it would be much easier to walk out on those positions than it was at the time that this was written. So that kind of jumped out at me, the fact that how much courage that would take to go against that much, not tradition, but expectation of a woman as a mother and as a wife, and that you walked out on it for yourself. It must come across, I can imagine fighting the feeling of supreme selfishness, having to get through that, and dealing with that inside yourself as the woman who did choose to walk out.
Thank you. I love that supreme selfishness. Even that is in question, because I think well, yeah, that's supreme selfishness, right? To leave your children. But he's there. Oops, did I say that out loud? But yeah,
Well, and she didn't feel like she was a ready mother yet because she wasn't a person. And she needed to find who she was before she could be that mother. And he's the one who said it first, actually. So, but the courage it took then too, because to go out with no money, no ways to get a job. Women did not work. That was not the norm, or at least above scullery maids and servants. So
Yeah, what I always find resonant, especially since I love the early 70s soap operas, is that, in the early 70s, a woman couldn't get a credit card, right?
that's right.
And it's not dissimilar to Nora not being able to sign on her own to borrow money.
Right.
Here we have 1879 and 1979, if we want to make it funny in terms of the numbers, but it's pretty interesting.
I couldn't get them, or I managed finally, but it was damned hard to get a mortgage as a lone working woman with a good income, because after all, you're not married. So
Yeah, it's so interesting that I just adore Henrik Ibsen. I really do, and I think my company and other friends make fun of me because of it. This funny,
No.
very bougie guy with the mutton chops, who was writing these socially conscientious, maybe that's the way I should say it.
yeah.
And he got in trouble with the feminists at the time, as we do now, like misunderstood. What do we do? But this play, and I just can't thank the company enough for like going into not only the text, but this vision that I had for it, like on Zoom with this like layer of like, it's a soap opera. What are we doing with that? And if you'd like to speak to that, you all, please do. Like the experience of making this, and as Margie's been with it since we've been working on this for 3 years.
Yeah, I just wanted to say what's interesting about, we waited so long to work on this act that it was the coolest thing because I didn't know it was coming. And one of the things we did a lot was talk about there is love between these two. There is love, there is relationship. And let's not discount that or make it simple. And so, after 2.5 years of, loving and loving and loving, to turn around and have that last taking off the doll's dress moment was a double, triple, quadruple whammy. And yeah, I said to Rachel, I was like, we've got to finish it. I mean, we can't just leave Nora dangling with Krogstad and the creepiness and the doll's house and the Christmas, that I felt like, yeah, I had seen the play, I had read the play, but the ins and outs of what that miracle was and why it was so important, and I'd never understood that watching the play before, that it was really so much about the expectation of how this thing with Krogstad was going to go down, and that revelation was huge and not exactly simple. Not as simple as someone saying, oh yeah, Doll's House, it's about that. Remember, we used to laugh. Oh yeah, Doll's House, it's about that, that terrible marriage. And then the woman decides to leave.
I know, I have to interject.
Not that simple at all.
It's not a terrible marriage. It really isn't.
Yeah.
It's about these two people. And I do want to open it up. I mean, Torvald in the chat has said, did it matter that Torvald was played by a woman? Now, I don't want to explode this out in a way that doesn't embrace the fact that it could be played by a man, but I really felt like there was such a genuine, beautiful frisson in that it was played by a woman, and yet also it doesn't even matter that it's played by a woman. But please speak to that. If that occurred to you, did it occur to you that it was being played by a woman? Did it matter? Did it not?
I don't know, no more than the fact that it was written by a man. And I mean, when you think about it, all of these roles and views were taken on by one man. I told Margie the other night that I had read that James Joyce learned Norwegian so he could write a thank you to Ibsen for writing his plays in his own language.
Oh my goodness.
That's according to a great books course I took. So, in reading Ulysses. But
Eli, did you have something to say? Could you back that up? I love that so much. Of course,
I can't,
George
but I love that.
language.
I couldn't
Write
do
a
that,
thank
but
you
good
note.
for him.
well, it was showing off too, but hubris on his part because he was such a linguist, but still.
But still,
Anyway, it amazed me that a man actually, more than anything, even the women playing these parts, that a man could write this and the whole contention and understand the problem so well of the dialogue and language. I mean, the communication and the feelings that existed on both sides, so he could write this.
I know. It fascinates me. I think he just loved Laura Keeler desperately. I just think he loved her. Like a daughter.
However,
whatever that means. But yeah.
so a daughter would give him more clarity about her involvement with the man and what that meant. But
she was later, like he was. I feel like there's sort of a funny mirroring going on in the inception of this, as I love to fantasize about the creation of it, because Ibsen did say that Nora came up behind him and tapped him on the shoulder, that she was in the room with him writing this play in her beautiful blue woolen dress. And I just think that's just extraordinary.
It is. And for the times, especially extraordinary. So, what did you feel like playing Torvald as a woman?
Yes, Rebecca, what did you feel like? You're extraordinary as Torvald. Rebecca Harris, ladies and gentlemen.
No, it's funny. This character turnaround I've always been fascinated by. It's like it's one of those great 180s in the world. I'm like, how does he do that? That he's like, you're terrible. Oh, thank goodness. Like, no problem. Like, I've always been fascinated by this end of this play. And so when it presented itself, I was like, yeah, I'll get inside that. I'll wear that hat, I realized partly because of the work that Margie and Rachel had done with already, this idea of it being a very loving relationship. I don't think Torvald, I don't think he knows the sacrifice that Nora has made. He's completely oblivious to it. And so he doesn't know what she's been going through. And I think he does love her. And it's a little bit, it comes across externally as condescending, but I don't think he intends for it to. I think he's just playing out his role. And then I was really aware of how terrible it is for him, the loss. It's really genuinely, it's not like, oh darn, who's gonna iron my pants? It's like, I think it's really like, holy shit, this is terrible. So
Because
I think
he never envisioned her leaving the house at all. He envisioned her role changing in the house, even at when he was contemplating that he could punish her for this or something.
right, we would just keep the show up for the rest of the
Right.
world.
He
And
was never going to lose her. And then
Right, she wasn't-
he took
yeah.
Ray and said, no, that's
Yeah.
not
And
how
it
it's
was
going to be.
in the heat of that, you know, that the moment of that, like, we gotta cover our bases, we gotta make this make sense. And I will say also, Christine, you know, he dealt with working women all the time. He just hired her friend. Like, so there were women, single women, who were working at the time. They didn't, not that they wanted to, but she had to. Christine, her friend, had to work.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I understand it a little better, but I'm still, you know, I'm still fascinated by this relationship and how I think it's kind of like, if he's a jerk and she leaves and everyone's like, yay, then it's, I don't know, it's not as complicated. I feel like, you know, nobody, it's one of those things.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's more interesting if it's heartbreaking for both of them.
It makes it more of a moral problem or
Yeah.
It was heartbreaking for both of them, and yet there was a transformative piece at the very end where they both said they would have to change.
right.
Yeah.
And they both wanted to.
Mhm.
That was the hopeful thing in it, I think.
Yeah.
My God, I'm so glad you say that. I think they're such a power couple. And that, like, the slam of the door, I don't know. I'm so glad you say that. Because I just see, if they just, the pain of this play to me is that they're so close to coming to an understanding. And maybe that's true drama. Like, it's so close and yet they miss it. For reasons I feel like Ibsen really understood in society. And I think we had this moment the other night in rehearsal where I said, well, this is so contemporary. Why does this speak to us? This is 1879. But this still floors us. And why is that? And I love hearing from you, Rebecca, that it's deeply, deeply heartbreaking for him. And it should be.
I want to say that I think so. I don't know if it was clear to people who've kind of come and gone or whatever, but as this process evolved, like except for Margie.
I know Margie's been the constant, Nora.
But in a way that's perfect. That makes the most sense. But other characters have been replaced and other actors have been replaced and but I benefited from the groundwork that was laid by the person who played Torvald before me. And I got to watch it, you know, and then be inside it. So I'm grateful for that. Yeah. I think it's a fascinating process.
Well, I don't know. How was it hearing the text performed by this female company? Is there any comment about that? Like, I really want to make another Zoom deep dive into a classic text with a female company. And I think that's just my jam. Like, I love a female company. That's it. But
Well, it's interesting because I've been thinking about it since Margie was talking about it, that you know, originally plays were put on by men. All the characters were men. And did that change the roles way back in Shakespeare's time and before, that they were portrayed by men? The words were written and the feelings were there. I don't know. I mean, was it? I just don't know that it necessarily makes a difference as much as the individual person who makes the difference in the role itself from their views and how they shape it.
It might be that it's actually constructive, as you say. That's interesting point about, Elizabethan theater, and but that having a company that's entirely one gender or the other is a kind of an acid bath that washes some of the unconscious structural gender normative behavioral whatever you want to, I mean, that it really goes, it really allows the characters to reveal themselves without the interpolation of actors, if you pardon me, but it's like a whole company-wide actor proofing of a text. If it's such a rich text where the playwright is really, channeling human relationships in a very deep way, Shakespeare or Ibsen, then it's almost useful to do a kind of monochromatic study of it. You see things that you wouldn't have seen otherwise. There's something about the relationship in this evening's, something about their relationship that was truer because there were two women performing the roles. I mean, we get it, yeah, sure, but there was no kind of friction or that word isn't friction, but a kind of burden of identity, The identities were in the characters.
Mhm.
And then they've revealed themselves, they've presented themselves in a very beautiful way. It's interesting, a very interesting exercise.
Yeah. Oh my God, Ralph. I mean, I feel like we need to talk about this and I need to record you talking about this. You're so articulate. But
No notes, no notes.
there's something like in the fact that Ibsen was talking about an impossible. I mean, we're in 2023 and this is still speaking to us. I mean, the top of my head wants to explode.
It's
Like,
like,
why is this not?
look
And
it up. I'm not sure, but there's there's two or three most performed plays. There's I mean, they're doing Dollhouse everywhere all the time because it's right in the middle of something that's 150 years later, it's still the truth about, whether soap opera or whatever. Yeah, sure, okay, the Crucible, okay, right? I mean, what are the 5 most produced plays in the world? I mean, this has got to be one. This is one. I have been told.
yeah, and I think, I mean, I'm gonna go out on a limb here that there's an intersection with what Ibsen was trying to think about with an audience and think about with we are assembled here as a theater audience and theater thinkers about society with this issue. And unless we kind of tip it, we can't even see it where our blind spot is so strong. Because I have watched and been witness to live performance, but also recorded performance of this done with, gender normative casting. And it's just, this last scene is I kind of yawn about it. It's like, okay, so, all right. Yeah, that's done. I don't want to even, it doesn't interest me because it's so taken care of. I mean, that's a very crass way of talking about my relationship with wonderful actors like Anthony Hopkins, but there is something that's really taken care of in it because of the gender role and even the subtlety of us tipping it. So I don't know. I don't have words for it, but boy, Ralph, thank you for.
Just long live Scandinavia, because I mean,
I know, they're so good.
I keep thinking, in this and the soap opera as an armature, as kind of a conceptual matrix is a really interesting and fruitful kind of way. I mean, with all due respect, I don't watch a lot of soap operas, but we all get it, and they're always, fake as they may be, they're always about what's going on between between in relationships, you know. I always think regarding Scandinavian, Dusan Makavejev was a crazy Serbian filmmaker who once described the films of Ingmar Bergman as Jungian soap operas,
Oh.
which is kind of true when you look at them. They're deeply psychological, but they're all kind of raw, just acting out, you know, characters at each other in a really kind of melodramatic way, except it's sub melodrama or you know.
I know now we're talking about Scenes from a Marriage, which of course was a soap opera in Sweden, a hit soap opera. Like
Yeah.
we're in there in terms of the real. Yeah, I love the Iris.
And that's something, if you'll pardon me running on, that's something that this medium, this Zoom, and the face work really allows for is, you know, we've called it kind of electronic Meisner in the past. You know, I mean that kind of where you know you're right, it's right there. The reality is you're allowed to be real. But I was reminded in some of Margie's work tonight of a scene again in Bergman. I think I forget if it's a Passion of Anna or I forget it was one of the where Liv Ullmann is. There's a shot of like a 45-second, maybe longer shot of Liv Ullmann lying with her head, her face in the camera, just the entire screen is her face, and with an interior monologue, and she doesn't move a muscle.
Oh
as,
my goodness.
as her face
You know, I
changes
should have
color.
done this, Ralph. Look at me. I have my internalized misogyny, or just I live in the world, that I would say to Margie, do the Al Pacino, instead of do the Liv Ullmann. Because for me, it's Al Pacino in Godfather when he's doing nothing.
Right.
And the door is closed on him with, you know, Diane Keaton. Like we can see you thinking.
That's right. Which is film acting, you know. I mean, you know, the interior stuff. All you see is that she flushes and tears come to her eyes, and there's not a muscle is moved. But that's the camera gets it, and actors who have that knack, you know. But there was some of that in this in this work, you know.
Thank you. I think so, all over the place. I mean, Margie, what she allowed herself to be available to with that too. And she said something in the last week like that she trusted me. I was like, oh, all these years, well, months and years, like, oh, I guess she did trust me. Like to pull her through this thing and say, no, I think you've got to get closer to the camera and look in the green light. During this part.
That's the burden.
I was gonna say the interesting thing about Zoom versus a film, I haven't done a lot of film, but you know, because you're conscious of your image all the time, even if you're not looking directly at it, you know when your face is getting bigger, when you're right, when you're left. In the green light, even though it's not a person, that's when it looks like you're speaking to a person. So your muscle memory in Zoom becomes about, oh, that's the green light. That's when I'm talking. That's when I'm intimate, right? And then I can look at the green light, you know, so it's really like viewpointing, for those of us who know what that is, in a tiny little box, right? And then there's this kind of energetic connection with this green freaking light. That becomes very, I don't know, for me, quite emotionally charged after this 3 years of doing it. That it does become like eyes to me, or the feeling of being close to somebody. It's very strange in that way, but it's you're making the decision. You are the camera person and the actor at the same time.
Oh, I love it. I have to say that Zoom for me has been like towards a poor dying theater exhibit. You know what I mean? Like the fact that we can do this at all. Look at us. Like I'm tripping. I want to say, like, here we are, we're in different states.
Mhm.
And here we are together. And we've kind of learned the language of it. And it's spooky and wonderful. But of course, during the pandemic, as you well remember, it was really our tool, or it was mine. You know, I live alone with my Chihuahua, who made a lovely cameo appearance during the doorbell. You know, but it's
Funny little puppet moments where the letter gets transferred from one screen to the other screen of the room. I mean, that's delightful. You know, I mean, that's kind of a relief to us to have this little bit of, let's call it comedy, you know, where, you know, here's the melodramatic letter gets handed off screen and appears coming in the other. That's great.
And
you know?
also, I would say, Rachel, your role, and in contrast to, you know, the text is it intensifies the text. Even though you're very funny and you're great, I mean, it structurally, it really works. It really is.
Thank you. I think it does too. And I feel like of course, always at the end, I understand it better. Like this super fan of Ibsen's. And also all she wants to do is sell macaroons to her great grandmother who, you know, I feel like she is connected to Laura Keeler. Like, we did it. I can make money for my mother's mother's mother, who was the star of this show. You know what I mean? Because I found it so sad. Truly, I'm weepy now that Laura Keeler could not in her lifetime accept this incredible gift, I don't know, of being Nora. But of course she couldn't. We can't.
Well, she wasn't Nora exactly.
Exactly, because she was Ibsen is Nora.
She inspired Nora. She inspired Nora.
I mean, this guy was Nora. I mean,
Yeah.
he put the skirts on. He was in that dress. It's his psyche. She was used. She was the muse. Of course she could.
Yes.
But I want to at least let her make a lot of money on the macaroons. You know?
Rachel, also the way you have the commercials and you have Ellen, but also that there's the repetition of the beginning of the end of the scene, both for the performers and for us, it works so well. And then also with the really
more of that, yeah.
and with the fun, playful stuff, like I could watch for like all night the thing with the ring or the handing of a cigar. I mean, that never, but also it's not done in a way like, look at us. I mean, that there's this, that the drama, it's so playful and delightful, but it's not, it's an added layer in addition to what's going on in the scene work. It doesn't feel like it's some kind of departure from the play.
Playful is right. You're right, Kim. It's playful, and we're allowed to relax into it because of the play. I mean, there's heavy shit going on, but the cigar's pretty nice.
I know, we worked that bit so many times. I want Trish to speak.
You can light it next time. You got to really light it.
I know, my God, I know. But you know, Trish lives with other people. She can't light a cigar. Whatever. We have these limitations, but I'm all about that. Like, and even today, I was like, what do we want to run? And they wanted to run the cigar. I was like, good. And I said to you all, this is behind the scenes. I was like, the slower the better, because sometimes a cigar is really just a cigar. And of course, we know Ibsen was anticipating Freud. I mean, Ibsen knew. He created modern drama, but I don't know. I think my next Zoom project has to be Chekhov. I don't know if I can do another. Thank you, Eli, for that nod. But yeah, it's been such an adventure. I mean, such serious fun, you guys. I mean, you know, I'm preaching to the choir, but Marky has been with us for 3 years, like delving into this.
Yeah, wow.
Oh my God, giving everything, dressing herself up, finding the right place with a door behind her, blah, 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 blah. Every time I go to the thrift store, I buy another doll. You know?
Are they talking to you yet?
Always. They're so wonderfully creepy. I mean, all of the layers, you know? And wonderful Trish, like with I just felt like Rank, I kind of want to talk about Rank because I feel like it's such a wonderful character that I got to play at the beginning, and then Trish came in and took him over, thank goodness. And I feel like tonight I was like, oh, I just gasped at the psyche of the play with Ibsen speaking to Laura Keeler, speaking to this Nora of the mind through Rank in a comical way. You know, in a kind of like, all right.
Desperately comical.
Do you know what I'm talking about, Ralph?
I think so, yeah. And it's because it's like, it's spooky though. It's not just comical, it's something weird. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what he dedicated his life to, right? In the later plays. He's like, I touched something in these early plays, and now I'm just going to be We Dead Awaken, like that's what I'm going to commit myself to. I mean, Master Builder, all of it. I mean, the thing is, I did read, the pandemic was very good for me and Henrik, because I read all of the plays.
Mm.
But I don't know. Nothing compares to Nora. What are we gonna do? John Gabriel Borgman? I don't think so. We have to move on.
This was Ibsen's like second or third pandemic too. You got to realize. I'm thinking
Exactly.
1918, spending the whole year reading Ibsen. I mean, he loves those pandemic lockdowns.
Thank you guys so much. Now I feel like I'm like rolling, but is there anything else anybody wants to like talk about, or do you have any ideas about a female company doing a play? Like what would be interesting or entertaining? I feel like this is a kind of meeting of the book club and the play, which is a lovely thing. Like that kind of study and attention and intimacy.
I think whatever you do would be fabulous. And I love the women, an all women cast. And I think it's interesting on my screen, I see the fire blazing, and that's transformation for me. So I think you nailed it.
Thank you. The hearth and transformation. And as everybody was singing, you know, burning down the house.
I gotta go, but thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ian.
Gracias a todos.
Thank you.
Thank you for a wonderful ending, a good ending to this incredible journey. And yeah, maybe I hope you're on my email list, and I'll let you know about, because I can't stop wanting to do great text with these extraordinary actresses, and maybe I can convince them that they need to do something else. So.
Cool.
I would definitely watch anything y'all made. Glad I got to see this.
Eli, you're the best.
Right.
Thank you for being here. And thank you for your Dr. Rank observations. Woohoo! Fire's
Wonderful job, everyone. Thank you so much.
Great work.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Well,